Two-wheel drive RC short course trucks are a lot of fun to drive and exciting to watch. Just them leaning through the corners, watching the wheels drop out of the bodies when they go over jumps. It's really cool. And if you're looking for a similar driving experience, I have a truck on the workbench over here I think you need to check out. This is the HPI Racing Jumpshot SC Flux. Now, if you're a regular viewer of the channel, the name's probably familiar. We already reviewed the Jumpshot MT and the Jumpshot ST, and both of those were fun trucks to drive, and this one looks like it's going to be a blast. Now, just like the others, this is a ready-to-run truck. It comes out of the box assembled. It has electronics. It has a radio system in there. The only thing you're going to need is a battery charger and 4 AA batteries for the radio system. But this is a really cool-looking off-road truck. HPI always has an excellent look to their vehicles. And this one I really like. I mean, we've got multiple tones of color here on the truck. We've got a flat black hood. We've got a main white section. We've got these orange and yellow details. It's a really cool looking body and it's really sleek. I love the air dams on the back of the truck here. That's pretty awesome. There isn't any venting in the back, and usually with a short course truck you're going to want that, but you'll be able to do that with a drill and some scissors later on down the road if your truck does parachute. We'll talk about parachuting later on down the road, but overall this is a really cool looking truck for just fun or maybe even hitting the track for some occasional club racing. Now let me pull the body off so we can take a closer look under the hood. This is the Jumpshot platform that came out a while ago, but this is version 2. They made some changes to improve it, and I think they did a fantastic job with it. Number one, the twin vertical plate chassis here is really unique to what HPI does, what they offer with their Savages and their other Jumpshot vehicles, and it's really strong. It's made out of aluminum, and just the way everything bolts together, it makes it a really rigid structure. It's really easy to work on this truck, and you can tune it as well. There isn't a ton of tuning on it because it's more of a basher style of short course truck, but if you need to make a little adjustments, it is possible with this truck, and there's some aftermarket options for it, so you can take it to the next level if you do want to. But I'm not going to go into great detail with this one. I'm going to refer you back to my MT review where I went into a lot of detail about what's going on in this truck, and I will link to that up above with a card. But really what I want to go over here is some really cool features and the changes from the other two trucks that we already reviewed. And we'll start off front here with the front bumper. Obviously it's got the single bar short course front bumper to it with a skid up front, so it'll glide over bumps and dirt that you're hitting on the track or in your backyard or wherever you're driving it. I really like this bumper on here because it protects the front end of the truck pretty well, and the servo. So if you do nosedive into the ground, this servo that's mounted up in the shock tower isn't going to get touched. I mean, it's going to be very rare on the other cars as well, but it is a possibility. Most cars have the servo inboard to protect it from all the elements and stuff like that. But back to the bumper, really cool look to it, really, you know, works with that body that they designed for the truck. And the next change up is the body mounts. These are a bit more extended than the other trucks, and that's just to help support the short course body a bit better. They're on these wings that are pretty flexible, so when the body, you know, does get hit and roll, they're not going to break, they're just going to flex. Now obviously, since we've got a short course bumper in the front, there is one in the rear as well, pretty wide rear bumper, and if you're just racing around with friends, this is going to come in handy because they're going to smash into the back of your truck. I've had it happen to me before, and this prevents them from getting caught up in your truck. But what's really cool here is they add some additional detail with the mud flaps. Really nice look to that bumper, and seems pretty solid as well. The rear body mounts are pretty much like the ST if I remember correctly, and those work pretty well. They are adjustable height, so if you do get an aftermarket body for this truck, you'll be able to adjust the mount height for that particular body. So that's some of the big changes. The other one obviously is the wheel and tire combination. It's a short course wheel and tire combination. It's a 2.2 millimeter 3.0 design, just like every other short course truck out there. Really cool orange spoke design on this, and then it's got this multi-terrain tread tire, and it's kind of a hard compound. I'd say a medium compound. Does have a foam insert on the inside. but this is kind of your general bashing tire. It's not a racing tire. It's for just going out blasting through dirt and grass and on asphalt and stuff like that. But we'll definitely see how it hooks up in the testing portion of this video. Now, the other part that makes this short course truck is obviously this long wheelbase chassis that I mentioned before. I did want to note it does have the SC logo etched on there, which I really like. And then it does have adjustability to it. So if you want to move this battery tray, this module forward, there are additional holes, so you can move it forward and adjust the weight bias of the truck. But it's probably going to be set pretty well right out of the box from the factory, because you're going to want some weight over the rear wheels so you get some traction. So that's why they have it farther back. But if it is really nose light, you can move the battery system forward a little bit and maybe balance out your truck a bit better. But let's just talk about some of the other features really quick. It's got an all metal gear transmission in here now. So metal top shaft, metal idler gear, metal differential gear, and a slipper clutch on the outside to help protect the gears, extra protection there. It is a sealed differential with oil in it from the factory, metal dog bones, ball bearings throughout the entire kit, as you'd expect from an HPI vehicle. Now, moving on to the suspension, we've got oil-filled coilover shocks. They are a composite body shock, at least they're threaded, and in my experience, these do tend to leak a little bit once you start to really use the truck. It doesn't happen initially, but over time they'll wear a little bit, and maybe HPI could find a better O-ring in future models that they come out with, but just be aware of that you might have to do some maintenance and cleaning and changing out the oil in the shocks as you use this truck throughout its life. The suspension arms work really well on here. They're a little bit of flex to them, but they're a really well designed arm, so they take some hits, and the suspension geometry is right throughout, so it's got the right length to it, and just the mounting points of everything really make this truck handle well. They've got that spot on. Like I said earlier, there is a little bit of adjustment for the shocks if you do want to lean them down or lean them out a little bit, depending on how you want the truck to handle. The upper links on here are fixed. They are revised upper links from the first version that I mentioned early on as well. They have some extra bracing to it so they don't flex and kind of collapse and cause odd camber to the truck. Now, one thing I did want to mention while we're talking about the suspension is I noticed a little issue with the build quality on mine. On the outside here, the outside of the hub, which is a nice hub, they put the link in the wrong spot. So as you can see, I've got a lot of positive camber in the rear here, and this one is set correctly. There's two positions where the upper link could go in, and they put it in the wrong spot. So I'm gonna have to move it out, and that will straighten everything out. Not really a big deal, I mean, but you know, for a ready to run, you shouldn't have to do that out of the box. So just be aware of your truck when you get it. If there's a lot of positive camber, take a look out for that, the position of the screw. The other thing I forgot to mention while talking about the transmission, so I'll skip back to that really quickly, is there's a nice motor plate here now to help keep the motor solid. The only thing I want to point out is with our ST and our MT, the motor moved within the first few minutes of driving it, and it killed the spur gear on here. So I would suggest taking off this nice gear cover and double checking to make sure your motor screws are nice and tight. Just a little tip for you guys, just to check out your truck. Go over it before you go out and drive it, make sure everything is good. It should be, but you know, things do happen in the build process. Now, finally, let's talk about the electronics in here. We've got a high torque servo up front. Everything is water resistant. The Flux speed controller handles 2 to 3S LiPo batteries. There is a little bit of programmability to it. It'll explain that in the instruction manual. And then we've got a 4,000 kV motor out back, which, trust me, provides plenty of power when you're squeezing the trigger on the radio system. Now, let's talk about the stuff that comes with the truck. It comes with the TF41 transmitter, which is a 2.4 gigahertz transmitter. It's got all your basic trim functions on there, works really well. You'll get an instruction manual with the truck, some decals, some additional info that you should read through, and a little bag of goodies, which includes a box wrench and a couple of body clips and some extra servo inserts in case you swap out the servo in here. You'll be able to use the different inserts depending on the spline count of the new servo that you get. And speaking of the servo saver, it is revised in this truck from the first version, so it holds up a lot better than that original version did. All right, that's really everything you need to know about the Jumpshot SC Flux. I am excited to go out and drive this thing. I'm actually gonna go and hit a track with it. I'm gonna head up to RC Madness and we're just gonna lay down some laps. So the Jumpshot is a basher style platform, but rather than just drive this thing around in my backyard or find some dirt field to run it in, I thought I'd take it to a track. So I went up to RC Madness in Enfield, Connecticut because they have a huge outdoor off-road dirt track that I could run this on, and they have a turf track there as well. So first up, I put it down on the dirt track and had a lot of fun. It was really windy that day, so it kind of pushed this thing around a lot. That parachute effect that short course trucks are known for really happened with this particular truck because it's not cut out in the back. There are no holes in the body to let the air out. So over every jump, this thing kind of just took off in the air. There's also a lot of wheel spin. These tires, I think, are just more of a basher style of tire. And if you're going to bring it to a track, you're probably going to want to change out your tires pretty quickly. But we made the best of it. We practiced our throttle control. I say we because my friend Dean Barry, a contributor here at RC Driver, he met up with me there and he drove it as well. But lots of wheel spin from this. But once, we got our throttle control down, we were able to really get some pretty good laps in with this truck. It does handle pretty well. I could tell that the suspension is set up pretty well out of the box. Over the jumps, when the wind wasn't up, it actually jumps nice and smooth and level, lands really well. But like I said, once that air gets under there, it just takes off. And I would say before you even drive this truck, if you pick one up, go and vent out the rear of the body, get the air out. And I think once you do that, it will settle down a bit more. But this thing is quick. It's steered pretty well on the dirt, just a little bit of understeer going into the corners. That was a little bit of the wind involved. That was the loose surface involved. But it was fun to see this thing go around the track. Dean tried it out as well, had a great time with it. But we kind of just shifted things, went over to the turf track, and that's where we had a lot of fun with this truck. Now, it is a rear motor truck, and on turf, mid-motor is more favorable. So the one thing we had to deal with was understeer from the front. Since all the weight is in the rear of the truck, there was a lot of understeer up front. So we just had to really let up going into the corners, make sure we got the front end planted. Once we did that, got around the corners just fine. If anything, I would say overall this truck does understeer. And for those of you that are just backyard bashing, or maybe you're new to RC, understeer is just fine. But if you want to go and drive it on a turf track, I think what you could do is shift that battery forward. You have that option in the chassis. So that's something that you could do to get around the track easier if you're on turf. But there on the turf, we could definitely see how much power this thing had. That flux power system that's in there definitely has a lot of punch to it. We just ran it on 2S. It was more than plenty. But over the jumps there, when it wasn't windy, nice and smooth, landed on the backside of a bunch of jumps. But again, when the wind picked up, it really just took this truck out for a ride. But I didn't want to vent it. I just wanted to drive this thing bone stock out of the box so you guys could see what it was like. I took the punishment from the wind just so you guys could see it in the video. But again, I definitely recommend venting this body, as I mentioned before. Actually, while we were driving on the turf track, Dean took it for some more laps, stopped the truck in the middle of the track, looked down at me and said, "This thing is a lot of fun." and I completely agree with it. It was just a blast on both types of track. And we just drove around in some of the dirt. It was fun there. That was where we really had a great time with just bashing around. Went back to the dirt track again and just kind of started going crazy with this thing, really having fun with it as a basher. Going off the jumps backwards, just sending this thing up in the air. The wind would catch it, it would do a backflip, land on all four wheels. We were having so much fun with it. And that's what it's all about. I mean, when it comes down to it, is it a fun truck? Absolutely. We had a great time with it. These Jumpshot platforms are very good. And now for the bad stuff. Within the first minute of driving this truck, the pinion gear fell off. So we had to go back to the pits to put the pinion gear back on. While we were doing that, we noticed that the motor screws were loose as well. So that means it just would have stripped the spur gear out in a matter of no time. So that's something to definitely check out on your truck when you get it. Other than that, we've already talked about venting the body. That is an absolute must. The shocks, they're just starting to show a little bit of sign of oil weeping out of the bottom of them, so you're probably going to want to consider a shock upgrade in the future. And what finally ended our day is when we were going off the jumps backwards into the wind just for fun. It landed on the front and broke the servo saver. I mean, it landed right on the front wheel and we heard the snap, and our day was over. So we have to get a new servo saver for our truck. So a little bit of a bummer there. But I keep saying it, the truck was a lot of fun and definitely serves its purpose as a basher short course truck. And you can get parts for this from HRP here in the US. I'm sure you can find it online elsewhere throughout the world, and HPI is making a killer comeback. Really cool to see their stuff, and I'm really glad that I got a chance to show you, what they have to offer with the jump shot platforms. If you haven't seen our other videos, definitely check out the description below. I'll put some links there for those other videos and links to this as well if you need some help finding it online, or the HPI website. I'll have links down there as well. And while you're there, hit that subscribe button and the notifications bell. Throw the video a like, and we'll see you back soon for some more RC driver videos.